The grand hall of the Galactic Council gleamed under the light of 3 artificial suns. Thousands of beings from across the galaxy filled the circular chamber, their voices creating a steady hum of excitement. Today wasn't just another monthly meeting. King Marcus of the Stellar Empire had promised a special announcement. James Smith shifted uncomfortably in his seat, trying to ignore the looks of amusement from the alien representatives around him. As Earth's ambassador, he had grown used to their mockery. Humans were newcomers to the galactic stage, having achieved faster-than-light travel only 15 years ago. To most species present, they were little more than clever apes playing with technology they barely understood. The room fell silent as King Marcus stepped onto the central platform. His royal robes shimmered with embedded starlight, and his crown seemed to hold a galaxy of its own. Despite his alien features, the silvery skin and 4 arms typical of his species, he carried himself with unmistakable dignity. Honored representatives, his voice boomed through the chamber. I come before you today, not just as a ruler, but as a father. He paused, his eyes scanning the gathered assembly. As many of you know, my daughter, Princess Dawn, has reached the age of marriage. Murmurs rippled through the crowd. Princess Dawn was famous throughout the galaxy, known not only for her stunning beauty, but also for her brilliant mind. She had already published several groundbreaking papers on quantum mechanics, and her theories on dark matter manipulation had revolutionized space travel. Therefore, King Marcus continued, I announce a competition for her hand in marriage. The victor will not only win my daughter's hand, but also become heir to the Stellar Empire. The chamber erupted in excited chatter. The Stellar Empire controlled nearly a quarter of the galaxy's trade routes. Marriage to Princess Dawn meant power, influence, and wealth beyond imagination. Silence. The king raised all 4 arms. The competition will consist of 3 tasks, each designed to test the worthiness of the contestants. These tasks will challenge not just technological prowess, but wisdom, courage, and character. James leaned forward, his heart pounding. He had met Princess Dawn once, briefly, during a diplomatic function. She had been different from the other aliens, curious about Earth, asking intelligent questions about human culture. She had even laughed at his jokes, which was rare for her species. The tasks will be revealed one at a time. King Marcus announced. Any representative of a spacefaring race may enter. The competition begins in 1 standard month. Before James could stop himself, he stood up. I wish to enter the competition. The chamber went completely silent for 3 seconds. Then laughter erupted. Thousands of alien voices joined in mockery. A human, competing for Princess Dawn's hand. The primitive speaks, shouted Representative Glocks of the Mechanical Collective, his robotic body shaking with artificial mirth. Perhaps he thinks he can impress the princess with his species' quaint internal combustion engines, or their primitive neural networks they call brains, added another representative, triggering more laughter. King Marcus raised his arms again, restoring order, his 6 eyes fixed on James with an unreadable expression. Ambassador Smith, you understand that you will compete against beings whose civilizations were crossing galaxies while your ancestors were still learning to make fire. James stood straight, fighting to keep his voice steady. I understand, Your Majesty. I still wish to enter. Very well. King Marcus nodded slowly. Your entry is acknowledged. As James sat down, he could hear the betting start around him. How quickly would he fail? Would he survive the first task? Some were even betting on whether he would withdraw before the competition began. But James smiled slightly, remembering something his grandmother used to say. Never underestimate someone with nothing to lose and everything to prove. Earth might be new to the galactic stage, but humans had something these advanced races had forgotten. The drive to achieve the impossible. The council meeting continued, but James barely heard it. His mind was already racing, preparing for whatever challenges lay ahead. He would show them all what one determined human could do, even if the entire galaxy was laughing at him. 1 month passed quickly. The day of the first challenge arrived with all the grandeur the Galactic Council could muster. A massive space station had been converted into an observation arena, where thousands gathered to watch the contestants face their first task. James stood among the 30 other competitors, each from different advanced civilizations. Next to him, a being made entirely of crystalline technology adjusted its quantum processors. On his other side, a creature of pure energy floated in a containment field, radiating confidence. Contestants. King Marcus's voice filled the arena. Your first task lies before you. He gestured to the massive window behind him, revealing a sight that made several competitors gasp. The maze of shifting stars stretched out before them, a massive construct of energy fields and gravitational barriers that formed an ever-changing labyrinth in space. The paths twisted and turned, disappearing and reappearing every 30 seconds. You must reach the center of the maze, the king explained. But be warned, the patterns of change are random. No computer has ever predicted them successfully. The other contestants immediately began preparing their equipment. The crystalline being deployed a network of quantum scanners. The energy creature split itself into 1,000 probes. Others brought out navigation systems worth more than Earth's entire economy. James pulled out what looked like an old compass and a small holographic device from his pocket. Look, someone in the audience shouted. The human brings toys to a space race. Laughter rippled through the crowd. Even some of the other contestants stopped their preparations to join in the mockery. The first contestant may begin, King Marcus announced. You each have 1 hour to reach the center. The crystalline being went first, its advanced systems mapping every possible path. It made it halfway before the shifting patterns trapped it in a dead end, forcing it to withdraw. The energy being tried next, its probes searching every route simultaneously. But the maze's energy fields interfered with its form, and it had to retreat. One by one, the contestants tried and failed. Their advanced technology proved useless against the random chaos of the maze. Finally, it was James's turn. He stepped onto the launch platform, holding only his simple tools. Betting pool closes in 5 minutes, someone shouted from the audience. Odds are 10,000 to 1 that he doesn't last 30 seconds. James ignored them. He activated his small holographic device, projecting a simple 3D image of the maze's current configuration in front of him. Then he looked at his compass, which wasn't really a compass at all. It was a modified gravitational wave detector he had built himself, inspired by the tools used to detect black holes on Earth. Begin, the king commanded. James took a deep breath and stepped into the maze. Instead of trying to predict the changes, he watched how the gravitational waves flowed through the structure. Humans had evolved to recognize patterns in chaos. It was how their ancestors had tracked prey and predicted weather. The maze shifted. James moved with it, flowing like water through the changing paths. Where others had fought against the chaos, he became part of it. His simple holographic display showed him where he was, while the gravity detector told him where he could go next. The audience fell silent as James progressed deeper into the maze than any previous contestant. Even King Marcus leaned forward in his throne, 6 eyes widened in surprise. When the maze shifted again, James didn't hesitate. He turned left, then right, then waited 3 seconds before diving through a gap that appeared exactly where he expected it to. 15 minutes after he entered, James reached the glowing platform at the center of the maze. The silence in the arena was deafening. Impossible. The crystalline being buzzed. What technology did he use? James held up his simple tools. Sometimes the oldest solutions work best. Humans learned to navigate mazes long before we had computers. We just needed the right tools to see the patterns. King Marcus stood, his royal robes shimmering. The human, James Smith, has completed the first task. Let it be recorded that he succeeded where the most advanced systems failed. As James walked back to the contestant area, he heard no laughter. Instead, he felt thousands of alien eyes studying him with new interest, and perhaps a touch of worry. The path to winning Princess Dawn's hand had begun. 3 days after the maze challenge, the remaining 15 contestants gathered in the observation deck overlooking planet Infernus. The world below glowed an angry red, its atmosphere swirling with toxic storms and rivers of molten metal. James stood at the window, studying the deadly planet while the other contestants prepared their environmental suits. After his success in the maze, they had stopped laughing at him openly, but their whispers followed him everywhere. Cain Marcus appeared on the main screen, Princess Dawn standing beside him. James noticed her quick glance in his direction before she looked away. "Your second task," the king announced, "is to survive 24 hours on the surface of Infernus. You must collect a sample from one of the crystal forests in the burning valley and return alive. The atmosphere is corrosive, the gravity is twice galactic standard, and the temperature never drops below 200 degrees Celsius." The advanced species began activating their protective gear. The crystalline being encased itself in a force field that could withstand a supernova. The energy creature generated a protective bubble of pure force. Others wore environmental suits that cost more than all of Earth's space programs combined. James pulled on what looked like a modified Earth military hazard suit, painted dull gray with subtle reinforcements at the joints. "Surely you jest," one contestant said, their voice dripping with concern that sounded almost genuine. "That primitive covering will dissolve in seconds. The human clearly desires death," another added. "Perhaps we should stop him for his own safety." James checked his suit's seals one last time. "On Earth, we have a saying, 'Necessity is the mother of invention.' This suit might surprise you." The contestants were deployed to different locations on the planet's surface. As James's pod descended through the burning atmosphere, he activated his suit's cooling system, a design inspired by the deep-sea creatures of Earth that lived near volcanic vents. The pod landed with a thud, and James stepped out onto the hellish surface. Immediately, the suit's external temperature readings shot up, but its layered system of heat management, based on how desert animals survived extreme temperatures, held steady. Around him, the landscape rippled with heat. Rivers of liquid metal flowed between mountains of black glass, and crystal formations jutted from the ground like massive glowing thorns. The air was thick with toxic particles that would have eaten through normal materials in seconds. But James's suit held. Its outer layer, developed using principles learned from Earth's extremophile bacteria, actually grew stronger as the acid tried to dissolve it. The cooling system, while simple compared to the other contestants' technology, was incredibly efficient. He began his trek toward the nearest crystal forest, each step carefully placed. The high gravity made movement difficult, but humans had evolved on a planet with relatively high gravity. Their bodies were built to handle pressure and stress. Hours passed. Through the communication system, James heard other contestants dropping out. Their advanced shields failed against unexpected energy bursts. Their complex environmental systems crashed in the extreme conditions. Even the crystalline being's force field couldn't handle the constant assault of the environment. James kept walking. His suit's power systems, based on the simple principle of using the planet's heat itself as an energy source, continued functioning perfectly. When acid rain began falling, the suit's outer layer adapted, just as Earth's life forms had adapted to countless challenges over millions of years. Finally, he reached a crystal formation. Using tools designed with the same practical simplicity as the rest of his gear, he collected his sample and began the journey back. 23 hours after landing, James's pod returned to the station. He was one of only 3 contestants who completed the task, and the only one whose protection system hadn't suffered any damage. As he removed his suit, Princess Dawn approached him directly for the first time. "How did you survive?" she asked, genuine curiosity in her voice. James smiled. "Humans evolved on a world that tried to kill us every day. We learned to survive through understanding rather than overwhelming force. Sometimes the simplest solutions are the most effective." The princess nodded thoughtfully. "Perhaps," she said softly, "there is more to learn from Earth than we realized." As she walked away, James caught Cain Marcus watching him with new respect. The final task would begin tomorrow, and now everyone knew. Never underestimate a species that evolved fighting to survive. The grand hall fell silent as the three remaining contestants faced Cain Marcus and Princess Dawn. After surviving the maze and the death world, only James, the energy being, and a tall blue-skinned alien from an ancient civilization remained. The final task, Cain Marcus announced, may seem simple, but it has defeated the greatest minds in our galaxy. He paused, looking at each contestant. You must make Princess Dawn laugh. Not a polite laugh, not a diplomatic smile, but genuine joy. Whispers spread through the watching crowd. Everyone knew the princess rarely showed emotion. Some said she hadn't truly laughed in over 5 years. The energy being went first, transforming itself into a dazzling display of light and color, telling jokes calculated by the most advanced humor algorithms in the galaxy. Princess Dawn watched politely, but her expression didn't change. The blue-skinned alien used technology that could influence emotions, presenting a performance that had made entire star systems cry with laughter. The princess remained unmoved, though she nodded respectfully when he finished. Finally, it was James's turn. He carried no special devices, no emotional manipulators, no advanced technology at all. Betting pool is closed. Someone shouted from the crowd. Odds are 1,000,000 to 1 against the human. James walked to the center of the hall and looked directly at Princess Dawn. Your Highness, I won't try to impress you with technology or force you to feel something you don't. Instead, I'd like to tell you about something that happened on Earth last week. He began telling a story about 2 scientists who tried to prove Earth birds were smarter than alien birds. They spent months setting up complex intelligence tests, only to find their research ruined because the Earth birds had taught the alien birds how to steal their lunch instead. A small smile appeared on Princess Dawn's face. Encouraged, James continued, describing how the scientists then tried to separate the birds, only to discover both species had learned to use the laboratory's communication system to share food locations. The Earth birds would send messages about sandwich locations, while the alien birds would warn them about approaching researchers. Princess Dawn's smile grew wider. In the end, James said they had to conclude that birds of all species share one universal trait. They're all equally good at causing chaos, especially when snacks are involved. The scientists published their findings under the title, Interstellar Avian Conspiracy: How Earth Lost the Bird Brain Battle. Princess Dawn burst out laughing. Not a polite chuckle or a diplomatic gesture, but real, genuine laughter that echoed through the hall. Even Cain Marcus looked startled. It's funny, she said, still smiling, because it's true. All species, no matter how different, can find common ground, even if it's just about stealing food. The hall erupted in confused murmurs. The other contestants stared in disbelief. The energy being flickered rapidly, its patterns showing distress. How? The blue-skinned alien demanded. What emotional manipulation technology did you use? None, James replied. Just a true story that shows how life everywhere has more in common than we think. Sometimes the best way to connect isn't through technology, but through sharing experiences we can all understand. Princess Dawn stepped forward, still smiling. The human speaks truth. His story made me laugh because it was genuine, not calculated. He showed wisdom in understanding that joy cannot be forced. It must be shared. Cain Marcus raised all 4 arms for silence. The final task is complete. James Smith, representative of Earth, has succeeded where all others failed. He has proven that true connection requires more than advanced technology or calculated perfection. The princess's eyes met James's, and he saw something there he hadn't expected: respect, and perhaps something more. The winner, Cain Marcus declared, of all 3 tasks, is James Smith of Earth. The hall exploded with a mixture of shocked gasps and grudging applause, the energy being dimmed to nearly nothing, while the blue-skinned alien stood frozen in disbelief. But James hardly noticed their reactions. He was looking at Princess Dawn, who was still smiling. Not the diplomatic smile she showed the galaxy, but a real one that reached her eyes. Sometimes, he thought, the simplest truth was the most powerful. No matter how advanced a civilization became, genuine connection would always matter more than technology. The celebration following James's victory lasted well into the night. The Grand Hall had been transformed into a massive banquet space, with representatives from 1,000 worlds struggling to make sense of how a human had won all 3 tasks. James sat at the high table beside Princess Dawn, still trying to process his own success. The food before them changed color based on its temperature, and the drinks floated in bubbles of pure energy, luxuries that would have seemed impossible to him just a few months ago. "You don't seem surprised," James said quietly to the princess, noticing how calmly she was taking everything. Princess Dawn turned to him, her silver eyes reflecting the starlight that streamed through the crystal ceiling. "Perhaps," she said with a slight smile, "because I'm not." Before James could respond, she stood, drawing the attention of everyone in the hall. The floating lights dimmed, focusing on her as she prepared to speak. "Honored guests," her voice carried clearly through the vast space. "You all wonder how a human succeeded in these tasks. The truth is, I designed each challenge myself." A wave of shocked murmurs swept through the crowd. Even King Marcus looked startled, though there was pride in his 6 eyes as he watched his daughter. "For years, I have studied Earth in secret," Princess Dawn continued. "While others dismissed humans as primitive, I saw something different. I saw a species that solved problems in ways we had forgotten." She gestured to a large screen that appeared behind her, showing recordings of the 3 tasks. "The maze," she said. "It wasn't about having the best navigation technology. It was about understanding patterns in chaos, something humans evolved doing while tracking prey and reading weather patterns." The screen showed James moving through the shifting maze, flowing with its changes instead of fighting them. "The survival challenge on Infernus," she continued. "It wasn't about having the strongest shields. It was about adaptation and efficiency, traits humans developed surviving on their own world of extreme environments." Images flashed of James's simple but effective suit design, contrasted with the failed advanced systems of other contestants. "And the final task." Her voice softened. "It was never about advanced humor algorithms or emotional manipulation. It was about genuine connection. Understanding that beneath our different appearances, all sentient beings share common experiences." She turned to face James directly now. "You succeeded not despite being human, but because of it. Your species still remembers what many of us have forgotten, that the most elegant solutions often come from understanding rather than overwhelming force." King Marcus stood then, joining his daughter. "You planned this all along?" he asked, though his tone suggested he already knew the answer. "Yes, father," Princess Dawn replied. "Our civilization has grown so dependent on advanced technology that we've lost touch with simpler truths. We needed someone to remind us that progress isn't just about having the most powerful tools. It's about how wisely we use what we have." James finally understood. "That's why you made sure the challenges couldn't be solved by technology alone." "Exactly," she smiled. "Each task required qualities humans still possess: adaptability, resilience, and the ability to connect with others. Qualities many advanced species have forgotten in their rush to develop ever more powerful technology." The hall had fallen completely silent, thousands of beings from across the galaxy processing this revelation. Some looked thoughtful, others uncomfortable, as they realized how thoroughly their prejudices had been exposed. "But why go to such lengths?" someone called from the crowd. Princess Dawn's answer was simple: "Because the galaxy needs balance. We need to remember that true advancement comes not just from technology, but from wisdom in how we use it. Humans haven't forgotten that lesson yet." She turned to James again, but now addressed the entire hall. My future husband won not through technological superiority, but through understanding. Perhaps it's time for all of us to remember that some problems require more than just advanced technology to solve. As the truth of her words sank in, James realized that this marriage would be about more than just a human winning a princess's hand. It would be about bridging two different approaches to solving problems: advanced technology and fundamental understanding. The galaxy would never be the same. The day after Princess Dawn's revelation, the Galactic Council called an emergency session. The massive chamber buzzed with tension as representatives from every major civilization demanded to be heard. The wedding announcement had sparked a crisis that threatened the very foundation of galactic politics. James sat in Earth's designated spot, watching as various species argued among themselves. The crystalline being who had failed the maze challenge now led a group demanding the competition be declared invalid. This was a deliberate manipulation. Its voice resonated through the chamber. The princess designed these tasks specifically for human abilities. It's an unfair advantage. King Marcus stood at the central platform, his royal presence commanding attention. Was it unfair when you brought quantum computers to solve the maze, when others brought emotional manipulation technology for the final task? That's different. The blue-skinned alien who had failed the last challenge protested. We used advanced technology developed over thousands of years. The human used intelligence, Princess Dawn suggested, stepping forward to join her father. Adaptability, the very qualities that helped their species survive and reach the stars. The energy being flickered angrily. They've barely had faster-than-light travel for 15 years. The marriage contract would give them significant influence over galactic trade routes. It's too much power for such a young species. James finally stood, his voice calm but firm. You call us young, yet in 15 years we've accomplished what many species took centuries to achieve. Not because we're better, but because we remember something important. The chamber grew quiet, curiosity overcoming anger. We remember, James continued, that every problem has multiple solutions. Sometimes the most advanced solution isn't the best one. You've all become so dependent on technology that you've forgotten how to think around problems. Princess Dawn moved to stand beside him, a gesture that sent whispers through the assembly. That's exactly why I designed the tasks as I did. Look at your own histories. Every species here once solved problems without advanced technology. You all had to think, adapt, and understand before you could build. But we evolved past that need. Someone shouted from the crowd. Did you evolve past it? King Marcus asked. Or did you forget it? What happens when your technology fails? When you face a problem your machines can't solve? The chamber fell silent as his words sank in. An ancient being, skin like wrinkled bark, slowly rose from its seat. I remember, it said in a creaking voice, when my people first reached the stars. We had less technology than humans have now, but we had understanding. We knew how to observe, adapt, and learn. It turned its ancient eyes to the assembly. Perhaps we have lost something in our rush to advance. One by one, other representatives began to nod. The angry shouting gradually turned to thoughtful discussion. King Marcus raised all four arms for attention. The competition was fair. Each contestant was free to use whatever methods they chose. That a human succeeded using simpler methods only proves the wisdom of his approach. Furthermore, Princess Dawn added, this union isn't about giving Earth power. It's about bringing balance to our galactic community. We've become too dependent on solving every problem with technology. We need to remember there are other ways. James looked around the chamber, seeing the change in the faces of those who had once mocked him. Earth doesn't want to replace your technology, he said. We want to learn from it, and perhaps help you remember what you once knew, that the best solution is often the one that combines understanding with advancement. The chamber erupted in discussion again, but this time it was different. Representatives were talking about cooperation, about learning from each other. Even the crystalline being had fallen silent, its surface reflecting patterns that suggested deep thought. Cain Marcus smiled, all 6 eyes glowing with satisfaction. The competition stands, and so does its result. Let it be recorded that on this day the Galactic Council recognized not just a marriage, but a new era of cooperation between all our peoples. As the session ended, James realized that winning Princess Dawn's hand had done more than just unite 2 people. It had opened the galaxy's eyes to a new way of thinking about progress itself. Sometimes, the greatest victories came not from proving superiority, but from showing a different path forward. 6 months after the competition, the grand halls of the Stellar Palace buzzed with activity. In a quiet study overlooking the artificial stars that powered the Empire's capital, James and Princess Dawn sat across from each other, a holographic chessboard floating between them. "Check," James said, moving his knight into position. Dawn studied the board, her silver eyes reflecting the complex patterns of light. Despite having access to predictive algorithms that could calculate billions of moves per second, she played without technology, just as James had taught her. "Interesting move," she said, countering with her bishop. "You know, the council meeting today was quite remarkable. Did you watch it?" James nodded, considering his next move. In the months since their marriage, the Galactic Council had undergone significant changes. Earth, once mocked as a primitive backwater, now had representatives on all major committees. 3 more worlds achieved faster-than-light travel this month, Dawn continued. Thanks to our new mentorship program, they did it in half the time it would have taken using traditional methods. The mentorship program had been Dawn's idea, pairing advanced civilizations with emerging ones, combining technological knowledge with fresh perspectives. It had proven surprisingly successful. "The crystalline beings are particularly enthusiastic teachers," James remarked, remembering how his former competitor had become one of the program's strongest supporters. "Though I never expected them to start studying Earth's ancient maze-solving techniques." "People can surprise you," Dawn smiled, capturing one of his pawns. "Just last week, the energy beings requested permission to establish a cultural exchange program with Earth's artists. They say human creativity helps them understand pattern recognition in new ways." Outside the study's window, a ship passed by, its design a perfect blend of advanced alien technology and human-inspired practical solutions. It was one of many such innovations that had emerged from the new era of cooperation. "Your father seems pleased with how things are turning out," James said, moving his queen to safety. "He is. The Empire's trade revenues have increased by 30% since we began implementing hybrid solutions." Dawn paused, her expression thoughtful. "But more importantly, he says he hasn't seen this much genuine innovation in centuries. People are thinking again, not just relying on machines to think for them." James smiled, remembering how far things had come. The same beings who had once laughed at primitive human solutions now regularly sought Earth's input on complex problems. Not because humans had superior technology, but because they offered different ways of seeing challenges. The university's new problem-solving curriculum is being adopted across 17 star systems, Dawn added. She had developed it herself, combining advanced technological education with Earth's emphasis on creative thinking and practical understanding. "Checkmate," James said suddenly, completing a trap he had set up 5 moves ago. Dawn blinked, then laughed, that same genuine laugh that had won him the competition. "I was so busy talking about progress that I missed the simple threat right in front of me. Rather fitting, don't you think?" They both looked up as King Marcus entered the study, all 4 arms carrying different data tablets. "The final reports from the frontier colonies are in," he announced. The new hybrid shield designs worked perfectly. Simple Earth-inspired modifications made them twice as efficient. "That's excellent news, Father," Dawn said, resetting the chess pieces with a wave of her hand. "Will you join us for a game? James has been teaching me some fascinating strategies from Earth's history." The king settled into a chair, his royal robes shimmering. "I'd be delighted. Though I must admit, These ancient human games have proven surprisingly challenging. No wonder your species learned to think so creatively. As they began a new game, James reflected on how much had changed. The galaxy had learned that true progress came not from technology alone, but from combining the wisdom of experience with the power of innovation. Humanity hadn't needed to prove its superiority. They had shown something far more valuable, that every civilization, no matter how advanced or primitive, had something worth teaching. The stars outside continued their eternal dance, watching as three beings from vastly different worlds played a simple game of chess, each learning from the others in ways no computer could calculate. Sometimes, James thought, the greatest adventures began with people simply willing to think differently. And in the end, that had made all the difference.